Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome back to another Jets episode on the Knicks, Jets, Etc. podcast. And with me, as always, my buddy, my co-host, my pal, the man, the rock, the foundation himself, my main man, Greg. And as always, John Meleka. Make sure to like, subscribe on our YouTube. We have new visuals going on. We are in the off season still. Otherwise, audio just about the same. Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Stitcher. We are, you name it, we are there. Just like and subscribe there for us. Hit that 5-star review. Hit us with that comment. Other than that, what's up, Greg? How you doing, man? Jets off season. We are
Yeah.
deep into this thing, man. I cannot remember a Jets offseason like this. Maybe the Sam Darnold offseason where every single day we were staring at our Twitters, at any Jets news, just about any quarterback. We were watching tape. I feel like that was the last time we were this locked in, but we are locked in for completely different quarterback reasons. But man, every single person that knows I'm a Jets fan has blown up my phone within the last 2-3 weeks because of this quarterback situation, because of the head coaching situation, because of other dominoes that are falling in and around the Jets. How you doing, Greg? What's your temperature like, man? Because I know usually calm, cool, and collected through this Jets off season, but I know that panic button's always really close to your hand. So how you feeling right now, man?
Always. I'm feeling good right now, man. It's all season long. There was whispers, there was rumors. I think you floated out there a couple times about Aaron Rodgers. To me, I thought it was always a pipe dream. I thought it was daydreaming stuff. I never thought it was actual possibility. It seems like it's a real possibility. But then again, I still don't know how much of a narrative is that we're painting these things. You see people online. The only way is successful offseason is if we get Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is plan A, and then a distant plan B is Derek Carr or Lamar Jackson. It's like we're setting ourselves up to fail. It's like we're essentially saying as a fan base in February, the Super Bowl hasn't even been played yet, that if we don't get a 2 or 3-time, multiple MVP Super Bowl winner as a quarterback at free agency to the likes you've very rarely ever seen in the history of the NFL, then our offseason is a complete failure no matter what we do. And our backup plan is getting another MVP. And if we don't get that MVP, then we land on Derek Carr, who was second in passing last year in the NFL. And that's a complete terrible offseason. And we might as well just pack it in. Like, it's crazy to me how we've set ourselves up to be so disappointed. And like I said, it's the first week of February.
I love that you're positive. I love that you're positive about the Derek Carr stats. I mean, that makes you a better man than me, because at the moment, I am with you on the Aaron Rodgers or bust, and then it goes Lamar Jackson or bust. And to be fair, those are pipe dreams. Like, those are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Yes, Lamar Jackson, if he is remotely how he's played, he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. And
yep,
those are pipe dreams, man. One, Aaron Rodgers has to literally agree and tell the world that the only team he wants to play for is the New York Jets. That's the only way he's coming, which I've been hanging my hat on that for a while. I don't know how much more confident I could be about that without being completely delusional, right? Like, it's maximum 30% at this point. Lamar Jackson, the most interesting news that's come out lately is he's $100 million apart on guaranteed money. And the interesting
big
thing
distance
is
on guaranteed money.
the interesting is here, especially with Lamar Jackson, he doesn't have an agent. So that leak is not coming from his agent. It's not coming from him. That's coming from Baltimore. And we know that the Baltimore front office, they play hardball.
Yep.
So it doesn't really necessarily make me excited. Even if they're far apart, even if he gets franchise tagged, it's going to cost us 3+ first-round picks, plus the $200 million that he wants to get Lamar Jackson on this team. We're going to severely cripple ourselves just to get Lamar on this squad. So I think it'll be formidable still because we have so many rookies. But it's still going to hurt us if Lamar Jackson comes. It's not going to be all happy-go-lucky, oh, this team is going to run to the Super Bowl here. It's really not. Aaron Rodgers, again, I think it would be better for us on the talent standpoint. I don't think it'll cripple us as much. I think the contract will be reworked. Even the way it sits, it's fine. Aaron Rodgers is not going to cost anything more than maximum one first round pick, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, those are the positives there. And then we go to Derek Carr. I mean, those have been the hot three names. We all know that the news coming out right now is Derek Carr went to go see his first visitation, which is New Orleans, which really caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
However, New Orleans doesn't have a quarterback, so it shouldn't catch you off guard. You know what I mean? Any team looking for a quarterback should be in line for any of these, let's call them top three names. But you got to throw in Jimmy G at the end there. And I know it's kind of unpopular, but I'm throwing in Ryan Tannehill. He's gonna be my fifth dark horse name. I think Tennessee is doing a completely new revamp on the offense. They got rid of the coaches. We took one of them, and Keith Carter, their offensive line coach. They're changing everything up on the offensive side of the ball. I wouldn't be too shocked if Tannehill comes through. So that leads us to, this episode here, man. Let's just start with Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron
Okay.
Rodgers Tuesday. Okay. He came out on the Pat McAfee show. There's no even reason to give you guys a soundbite this week because he didn't say much except for he's going into a dark room for 4 days. Literally. No lights, no stimulation, no phone, by himself. And he's going to contemplate his future in this isobaric chamber with sensory deprivation. Yada, yada, yada. It's easy to go out right now and just call him a crazy guy and say, why would you want this guy on your team? Why are you going to wait? How are you going to hold your franchise, your billion-dollar franchise with millions of dollars on the stake, whether it's investing for the future, whether it's your fans, you're going to hold it on some guy who is going to go on a retreat for 4 days in pitch black, and we kind of trust him. I understand that that's tough. So I'll throw it up to you, Greg. What are your initial thoughts here about Aaron Rodgers and how he's handling this offseason? To be honest with you, it feels really calculated. It started off as soon as he finished that last meeting, he had a week off, and then he went whale watching for a week, and then he did the Pro-Am in Pebble Beach for a week, and then lastly, he's on this retreat, and guess what, Greg? Guess when everything is going to end? Right after the Super Bowl. He has that Aaron Rodgers Tuesday, right after the Super Bowl. His retreat's going to be over. The game's going to be over. He has been intent on not making this Super Bowl about Aaron Rodgers. He wanted to wait until after it's done. And coincidentally, we'll get into it, but Derek Carr, he has to be cut by the Wednesday after the Super Bowl. So before everyone goes freaking out about how we're going to wait this whole franchise, about how we're going to kind of be waiting on this quote-unquote drug addict to decide, and we're going to be kind of just waiting here with twiddling our thumbs. I just really think that's narrative. I just really think that's about people who just have a feeling about this guy, Aaron Rodgers. To me, it all feels calculated, and it's all coming to place, man. We keep, I mentioned in the beginning, our group chats, our anxiety. It's just all building up until the Super Bowl, and then the Monday comes where a couple of offensive coordinators, a couple of defensive coordinators from the actual Super Bowl teams are going to probably get moving on to new squads. On the Tuesday, Aaron Rodgers will tell us. On Wednesday, Derek Carr will be cut. I'm hyped about that. But let's just start with Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts about the way he's handling this offseason, man?
I think he's handling it fine. I think he's been through it a few times. That's what's kind of annoying if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, is that he feels like he does this every year. I mean, to me, I could have sworn the Pat McAfee thing, it's like he's going on this retreat to decide if he's going to play football next year, not necessarily deciding on what team he's going to play for next year. I think there's no way in hell he doesn't play football next year. So this
110
whole
million
thing,
reasons.
yeah. 50, what does he get? He gets $55 million next season, fully guaranteed if he plays or something like that. So, I think he's absolutely playing next year. What team he's playing for, I think that's still going to be up in the air, whether it's decided the week after the Super Bowl next week or whether it's decided later in the offseason. That's, I think, yet to be determined. I don't think we're going to come in on the Tuesday after the Super Bowl and have a definitive answer on like where Rodgers is playing. Maybe we'll have an answer on if he wants to stay in Green Bay or not. I also don't.
That
I don't.
that's
I haven't
huge,
got the.
Greg. That's the whole
I ha-
battle.
yeah, but I also haven't got the vibe yet if it's his decision to stay in Green Bay. Like, have you got the feeling that Green Bay might just move on from him because they're like, dude, we have Jordan Love, we drafted him with a first round pick, we have to figure something out. But obviously, he has a no trade clause. Obviously, he can't get
He does
traded to
not.
the NFC.
He does not.
He doesn't have it. Okay.
No. So that's a
So
good point.
do you think?
It's a good point
Yeah.
you're
What do you
making.
think the relationship is?
Yeah, it's a good point you're making here. So you mentioned how I was all over Green Bay. Honestly, since the Jets went this year, and I was there, I, I heard the murmurs. I was talking with the owners of the team in the stands with me,
Yeah.
and I made fun of them because they were booing Aaron Rodgers. And then
Yeah.
Jordan Love ended up coming in at the end, and we were, talking in jest about it. However, honestly, it's a reality at this point. Jordan Love is on his last year of his contract, Greg. They
It's
cannot trade
crazy.
up for a quarterback and then never let him play and then walk. You can't. Or on vice versa, you can't trade up for a quarterback, never let him play, and then give him a new deal. Like, and both of those are disasters for Green Bay. And so the rumor was going into this offseason that Jordan Love himself will ask for a trade if Aaron Rodgers comes back because he's going to be screwed. Also, no team is going to want to pay him real money because Green Bay didn't play him. They're going to be like, they know something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from the Aaron Rodgers perspective, Greg, he does not have a no trade clause. So your question is, why wouldn't Green Bay just do whatever they want? Why is it up to Aaron Rodgers? It's up to Aaron Rodgers because they're going to have to pay him $60 million. So imagine having to write a check for 55 mil, whatever it is, before the season starts to have a guy who's going to be, I would say, a cancer to your locker room if you have him as your bench player behind Jordan Love. You just can't have Aaron Rodgers as your bench guy.
Yeah.
Or number two, you're going to have a disgruntled organization. Like, think about it. You have veterans, Bakhtari making $20 million as left tackle. You have a free agent in Nixon who almost made the Pro Bowl. You're not going to be able to resign because you have Aaron Rodgers, because you have to think about Jordan Love, because you have this left tackle. There's so many issues here. Alan Lazard is a free agent. Green Bay's in a predicament. But to be honest with you, especially with it's hard to understand, Greg. When you go there, he's already in the Hall of Fame. Like, we joke around about Mike White.
Yeah.
How he's literally in the Hall of Fame already. Like, they have a wing for him. They have his jersey. He's a legend. And they don't want what happened with Brett Favre to happen with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is pretty clear about that originally.
Yeah.
He said that I don't want this to. So we have PTSD as fans. Oh, you're just gonna be like Brett Favre every year. You're gonna tell us whether or not you're gonna retire or not. Dude, Brett Favre did this well into training camp. like
Yeah.
like the free agency was over, the draft was over, the teams are practicing already for the new year. And he's like, oh yeah, I want to come back. And
Yeah.
not only do I want to come back, I want to play for the Vikings, the division rival. They're like, no, dude, no, none of that. Like, if you really want to go, we'll send you to the AFC. Just like, get away from us. You're ruining everything. Every offseason you're ruining our plans. That's not what Aaron Rodgers is doing. So I want to get rid of that narrative, but to answer your question, he does not have a no trade clause, but he's Aaron Rodgers. When you have $60 million guaranteed, you officially have a no trade clause because
Yeah.
somebody made a joke. Shout out to Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic, right? He's been killing Twitter with his dry humor these days, and he mentioned, hey, what happens if Green Bay trades Aaron Rodgers when he's in self-isolation, right? He's saying he's without communication. What if he comes out after 4 days and all of a sudden he's on another team? That would be hell for that other team. Absolute hell. Imagine having to trade for someone that you owe $60 million to and he doesn't want to play for you. It's like you're literally, I know this is a different team, different topic. It's like you're trading for Kyrie Irving. It's like you're trading for Kyrie Irving right now. For what? Like what? The Jets aren't a stable franchise like the Mavericks in his perspective. You know what I mean? They don't have an owner who has some stability here, who
Has
can get
won
away
before.
with, who has won before, who can get away with, hey, we're just running this 1 year with Luka, see how it goes as a rental. It was cheap, and then we can re-sign him later. That's not what we're dealing with, man. This is the New York Jets. If Aaron Rodgers comes
Mhm.
here, it has to be for 2 years, and it's Super Bowl or bust. Like
Yeah.
that's a completely different organizational swing. So, in my opinion, Greg, he does have a no trade clause, and whatever
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers says goes. To be honest with you, if Aaron Rodgers says I'm retiring, it's over. If Aaron Rodgers says I'm playing for Green Bay, I'm calling Green Bay and asking for Jordan Love. I've been saying it. Everyone's been calling me crazy, but it's time. It's time to cash in these crazy checks. Aaron Rodgers is a
Yeah.
possibility. If not, Jordan Love is a possibility.
Let's go from your
But
crazy to my crazy. If you're done with Aaron Rodgers.
the last thing I'll know,
Yeah.
everybody's been coming at me with the Vegas odds, Greg.
Hmm.
I have 2 notes to make about the Vegas QB odds. Number one, where on earth can I find these stupid odds to bet? Everybody
Yeah.
keeps sending me screenshots and pictures of websites. I go on all the apps. I cannot find one spot to bet on it. I would love to, because I have my own concoction in my brain of where all these quarterbacks are going to land. Where I think Eric Bieniemy is going to go to the Ravens. I have a lot of thoughts. I wish I could bet on it. So it feels like fake. It feels like fake news just to rile up conversation. Oh, here are the new odds. And before you get too excited about it, before you say quote unquote Vegas knows all, guess who was the favorite to sign Deshaun Watson by a large margin? It wasn't even close. The New York Jets. And guess who
Yep.
never was even in the running for Deshaun Watson? Never even close. New York Jets.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
like that's the first note, and the second note is, and this is where I guess we could wrap up this Aaron Rodgers situation. If you just calm down for the next week at least, he said the Vegas stuff was fake news. He literally was joking around. He's like, I
Yeah.
don't know where that came from. I don't talk to anybody. I am my camp. You will hear from me likely on a Tuesday, likely on Pat McAfee show what I'm doing. Everything else you hear is from Green Bay. Like, and so that's where I'm at there with Aaron Rodgers. I, in my heart of hearts, Greg, I legitimately do not believe he's going to go back to the Green Bay Packers. I am with you. I think he's going to play football again. And if those two things actually happen, like check mark, he comes out and says, I'm going to put the Jets odds at 75% for Aaron Rodgers to come to the Jets. If he's playing and if the Green Bay wants to
And
move
he's
on,
not
which we
playing with
already
Green
know.
Bay.
We
Yeah.
already know that Green Bay wants to move on. Let's, I'm going
Yeah.
to kind of put a green check mark there. If Aaron Rodgers wants to come back and Green Bay's like, no, we're going to move on from you, I'm going to put the Jets at a 75% mark, which is insane. I've never even said that number out loud. I don't want to think
It's
about that number.
wild.
But that's what for me, we're really up against Aaron Rodgers. And the last note is I will not be upset if Aaron Rodgers retires. Not even 1% upset. However, if Aaron Rodgers goes to another team, I am 10 out of 10 pissed off. Hate Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to be on a tear here. I'm going to be so upset with the Jets, especially if it's bad compensation. Like, that's where I'm going to be livid. But that's
Yeah.
where I'm at right now with Mr. Aaron. If he decides he's playing, if Green Bay we know doesn't want to deal with him, it's a 75% chance. If he goes to Green Bay, if he's like, I'm coming, Green Bay's like, all right, we'll run it back one more year. I'm giving up this year's second round pick for Jordan Love, straight up.
Really?
Yeah, straight up.
Okay.
That's a nice investment. There's no better quarterback in the second round than him. He's a 1-year deal, and you could sign him for anything. If he blows up, if he does amazing, you're not giving him $30 million, which is what Purdy, projecting now
Yeah.
in a couple of years, which is what Daniel Jones might get. A lot of crazy quarterbacks talking about $30 million is the
Yeah,
baseline here.
you're giving him 15 or 20 with incentives.
No problem. If he has
And
an
he's a
amazing
$5
year.
or $10 million hit on the cap. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. I'm with you with that.
All right. So let's move on to Derek Carr visiting New Orleans here. That's the news coming out. His first official visitation, which means that it was granted to New Orleans. He's not a free agent. He has to be granted. So that means
Yep.
that New Orleans, in some sort of back way fashion, said, we'd be willing to give you compensation for this pick. Give you a compensation pick for Derek Carr. Probably a third or fourth round, but this one to me means that nobody else said we're going to trade for him, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And number two, all it feels to me is like New Orleans is kind of legally tampering here. Because, Greg, the person that in fact does have a no trade clause is Derek Carr. And
Yep.
Derek Carr, unlike Aaron Rodgers as well, has beef with the Raiders. Okay? He doesn't want the
He's
Raiders to
made that
be
very
happy.
clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's no part of him like, yeah, let's try to help out the Raiders on my way out. No. And also, if he indeed does get cut on Tuesday, because that's when he's owed his money, he's going to get $7 million to be cut tax free from Vegas. He's literally going to be here's $7 million. Go ahead, go wherever you want, and we're not going to cripple your next team. They're in completely different situations, yet they also feel so similar. Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. I mentioned how you were optimistic about Carr, which you checked me a little bit on it. I've been saying I'm not too confident about his ability in the cold weather. You told me, you're not so confident about the situations in those cold weather games, etc. I'm with you. I'm still not that confident about Derek Carr. He's still number 3 or 4 on my list of potential quarterbacks, kind of fighting with Jimmy G in my brain, right? Because of like cost and commitment.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Derek Carr, man? And then we'll specifically get into him in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, from my top 10 QB list to now, I think he's a good passer. I'm not worried about the cold weather. Again, like if you're talking about like freezing weather, how many Jets games were freezing weather this season? Maybe 2.
Anything under 36 degrees, I think was the
Sure.
number.
Yep.
Dude, we're playing at MetLife Stadium. I mean, we can't have a guy who's scared of the cold. I don't care. I don't care that we got
I know.
one
I'm
year
just
where
saying,
we
how
had a
many games this
decent.
season were that? 2. I know it's not ideal, but it's like, I mean, we're gonna just move on from this guy because 2 games might be bad based on the weather.
Well,
It's
the
crazy.
playoffs too. You have to assume that any playoff game is going to be cold.
Yeah, but then even then, looking at the playoff games, like how many of them really were? You know, it's
Yeah,
just
I
not
mean,
as much as people think. It's just not as much as
okay,
people think. That's what I'm trying to say.
okay,
It's like
Greg. But if it's a November game and it's windy and I'm cold in the parking lot at 9 a.m., the game's over. I can't have that. I can't have that with my new quarterback that
yeah.
I'm paying money to. I just can't. I can't show up.
Well,
Listen,
it's already
I
over
have
with
one
Zach
wish.
Wilson anyway.
I have
No matter
one
what.
wish, Greg. I have one wish. If I
Yeah.
drive to JetLife Stadium at 9 a.m., I don't want to feel like the game's over already while I'm standing there 4 hours before kickoff.
Yeah.
That's the one ask I have, because we're going into every game disabled. We are disabled at quarterback. I don't know how else to say it. Every single year, and forget that, every single week last year of the season, we were disabled at quarterback every week. We're talking about whether Joe Flacco's going to throw 70 times. We're talking about whether we could hide Zach Wilson, whether he can make a slant pass. We're wondering whether Mike White can play with 5 broken ribs. I mean, we're disabled at quarterback, man. So when you're telling me
Yeah.
that my next franchise guy is going to be a guy who can't play in the cold, a guy who we're not sure can handle the media, come on. Like, come on, give me a break for once in my life. You know what I mean?
Well, there
So
are no breaks. That's my whole thing. Is like, we're getting bent out of shape about hypothetical situations that might not happen. You know what the reality is? We haven't had a good quarterback in 10 years. So we can get bent out of shape about cold weather games that may or may not exist, whether we're at home or may not be on the road in the playoffs, whether we may or may not be in the playoffs, or we can just go out and sign a guy that was second in passing last year in the NFL.
also second in interceptions.
So
But yeah, I
yeah,
got you. I got you. I
hey,
got you. All right. So beggars
he's
can't be
throwing the
choosers.
ball.
That's what you're going with.
It's what you want. So the whole thing that's funny about this is when you look at people online, it's option 1 Aaron Rodgers, option 2 Lamar Jackson, option 3 Derek Carr. What happens when plan C falls out from underneath you when plan A and plan B haven't even started yet? So
So then it
that's what's
so then it
awesome
goes.
about free agency is that it's not linear. They're all happening at the same time. So we could lose Derek Carr before we even take a shot at Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson because he might go to the Saints, it seems like. Saints are willing to give up a pick. Rumor is a 3rd-round pick to jump the line and get him before he gets cut. I'm surprised about the Saints because of just where they're at, with picks and with salary cap. the Saints are one of those teams that I feel like kind of finagle both picks and salary cap, but I guess maybe they got a pick back from Sean Payton when he went to Denver. I can't remember what those picks were, but maybe they're using
But
that
they got
pick to
some
then
nice
trade to the
compensation.
Ravens.
They got some
Yeah,
nice compensation from Denver for a head coach that was
they're
never
usually
going
in
to head coach
salary.
for them again.
It's crazy. They're usually in salary cap hell.
But don't forget, Michael Thomas. His money got pushed. Your boy Michael Thomas. They're about to save. He's a 60 million, quote unquote, $60 million cap hit. He's gone. He's gonna have no dead cap. They figured that out. So their cap is gonna change a little bit. Plus, everybody's gaining was like $15 million.
Yep.
Listen, to be honest with you, he's a nice fit in New Orleans. It's a dome team. The fan base loves their team and their quarterback no matter what. They're always going to be on their side. They have weapons. They have a solid defense, and they have Olave. They have Kamara. They got a squad. It's a nice fit for him. To be honest with you, if I'm Derek Carr, I would accept that trade clause. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I'd
think
go
the
to New
Saints line up.
Orleans.
Yeah, I think
But
the
I have a
Saints line up
question.
well for him.
Let me ask you this: would you, if you're Derek Carr? I mean, this is a little off the rails here, but if you're Derek Carr, are you accepting to just keep your deal, which might be less than Daniel Jones at this point? When it's all said and done here after this offseason, going to New Orleans, helping out Vegas, and kind of being stuck there? Or are you just kind of taking this meeting, and then once free agency hits for you on Thursday, then you go visit? You can go visit the Saints. You can go visit the Texans, which their first ever season took your brother, and so you guys are beloved there. You kind of grew up kind of in the Houston Texans organization. They have a new coach. And everybody loves. They have
Yeah,
a
D'Amico
bunch of
Ryan,
They have a
shout
bunch of
out.
picks. Yeah, and they got a first round pick. Like there's the Houston. There's the Carolina route, which I think that's the answer for him. Go with Frank Reich. Solid defense, solid running game. You have some nice draft compensation coming up because of Christian McCaffrey. If I'm Derek Carr, I'm not going to the Jets. Like, that is the last place I'm going. Like, sometimes you have to think about the other side, right? Like, if I'm that's why I put that 75% mark for Aaron Rodgers. It makes perfect sense for him if he's going to play, if it's not Green Bay, to come to the New York Jets. That's his best situation, in my opinion. For Derek Carr, it's not his best situation. Dude, like, Greg, you're a big Christian. I'm a big Christian. We come from Christian families. Derek Carr, big Christian. That's not going to roll in the New York media, dude. You can't come out and say God this, God that, everything's fine, because it's not going to work. They're going to kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he comes out with his eyeliner and he throws 3 interceptions, we're going to kill him. There's going to be no redemption for Derek Carr. And I think it'll be, honestly, all the disasters of Vegas that he sees, like all the bad things that have come out of Vegas, I feel like will come out of the Jets for him so fast. So fast. You know what I mean? We'll turn on him. If we start 0-3 with Derek Carr, it's over. It's over. We're gonna burn him at the stake. And that's what I'm really worried about. And from his perspective, I'm not going to the Jets. I'm being honest. They have the weapons, but it's just not. It just wouldn't be my type of deal. If I'm him, I would go to a slightly warm city, right? That we mentioned, a dome in New Orleans, Carolina, something like that, and I would move on. But let me ask you this real quick before we move on from Derek Carr. What do you care about if you're Derek Carr? Because I know what I care about if I'm his perspective. Like, if I'm, from your perspective, Greg, what does Derek Carr care about? What should he care about? Should he care about the money? Should he care about screwing Vegas over, kind of like in a Joe Tsai way, where it's like, I just don't want Vegas to get compensation. I don't care what it is, and I'll figure it out because I'm getting $7 million anyway. Does he care about the defense? Does he care about the offensive weapons? Does he care about the coaches? Does he really only care about the weather? Is that a real thing in his brain? What do you think?
Yeah, I think for him, number one option. I mean, I guess for me, if I was him, number one option would be winning. Number 2 option would be money. Number 3 option would be location. If he
So
thinks he is
offense
a
or defense when
significant
you say winning?
See, for him, I think it's a combination of both, but for him, I would want to get on a good defense, dude. You've played in the league for
Yeah.
10 years. Your average defensive ranking for the team that you're on is 25th in the NFL. He's played
And
on
he's
a
played with
bottom
offensive
third.
weapons.
Yeah, but he's played on with a bottom third defense every single time. Every single season, every single game, every single drive, he has to go win for 10 years now. He got drafted in 2014. It's 2023. That's
That's
tough to do.
crazy.
That's
Yo,
tough to do.
I remember him playing with Devontae Adams. That's so crazy, man. How long
Yeah.
ago that was. That really
Yeah,
is
it's also
crazy.
crazy that they traded for Devontae Adams and he's leaving, but what are you going to do?
But listen, that's what happens when you spend so much money into two positions, man. You can't afford it. And
Yeah.
we talk about Mark Davis a lot, and we talk about how he's cash poor. A little off topic, but he's being now investigated by the WNBA because he owns the Aces, the Las Vegas Aces, and they're doing some shady salary cap stuff where
Yeah.
the salary cap is so low for WNBA, but all these stars are coming, so they're talking about whether he's paying them, outside of the salary cap. So he's in some deep stuff here. I don't think he has the cash for Derek Carr. I think he's gone. Oh man, we are in a tailspin as Jets fans, man. To be honest, there's only one more week, in my opinion, of this torture. We're gonna know at least what happens with Aaron Rodgers. We're gonna at least know what happens with Derek Carr next week, and I think that's gonna make the dominoes fall on Jimmy G. So before we get out of here on the quarterback stuff and move over to a little bit of a Senior Bowl recap.
Yep.
I'm not going to ask all your thoughts on Jimmy G because everyone has their own, I would say, opinion based on the Patriots, based on whatever we saw from San Francisco, and then whatever the injuries. I think it's all the same there. So let me ask you a little bit of a nuanced question. Would you rather have Jimmy G or Derek Carr, and why?
Derek Carr because he's a better passer.
So does the scheme mean anything to you? Like that Jimmy G's gonna come in here and he's gonna run the West Coast and they're not gonna have to teach him a brand new language with Hackett. Like Derek Carr's gonna have to learn a whole new system. Like that, it worries me a little bit, a tiny bit, because this Hackett guy, I love him. I've been defending Hackett, especially his play calling. But I don't know if he's ready to teach a new guy, in 1 to 2 years. The window is so small, dude. The window is so small.
Yeah, I mean, didn't what's his name? Didn't Derek Carr run the West Coast offense with who's the guy with the emails? John
Just look at him.
Gruden.
Look at
Doesn't
that.
John Gruden run the West Coast offense? So I don't think it's crazy. Dude, you have to remember what Derek Carr's been through in Las Vegas. Besides the franchise moving, which is like a crazy thing to go through. Most quarterbacks, a la Jared Goff, don't make it. You had John Gruden come in and have an email scandal that blew up the whole league. You had him finally, after 7 years, get a winning team and go be on the verge of making the playoffs and snap his ankle in the last week of the season.
That was crazy.
So he couldn't play in the playoffs and they lost. Then you had Rich Bisickia come in for John Gruden to take over. Oh, you had Antonio Brown come in and start saying all kinds of crazy racist shit. Then you had John Gruden with the emails, Rich Bisickia come in and take over the team midseason, bring your team all the way up with an interim head coach to be in the final game of the season and lose on a field goal to make the playoffs. Like, he's been through so much in 5 or 6 years. The whole, I don't know if he can handle this weather. I don't know if he can handle this media and all this stuff. I don't know if that's true. So I think his offense, John Gruden, like I said, runs a West Coast style offense. I think Derek Carr, a 10-year vet, can figure out the offense. To me, it's not so much scheme.
Wishful
It's just I
thinking
think he's a better quarterback
than Jimmy G. All right, that's fair.
Yeah, I just think he's a
Last
better
thing I'll
quarterback.
know here with the quarterback situation for the Jets. I know about 30 minutes in here. I know you're listening. You have the anxiety that we have. We're just here to talk about the facts, the contract situation, kind of dispel any rumors, and kind of talk about any new rumors / information that comes about from different avenues. The last thing I'll know here before we move on to Senior Bowl recap, we know that Peter Schrager is connected with the Jets. We know that Bill Simmons is connected with the NFL. And on the last podcast that just came out, they're pretty confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets, which really blows my mind every time they say that. That's the second time Peter Schrager's alluded to that. And we know that Schrager knows the Jets front office. Another note is Connor Rodgers was at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, which we'll get into right now. Noted that the biggest untold kept secret is that the Jets are all in on Aaron Rodgers. That's a weird thing to that's a weird thing to talk about at the Senior Bowl. Like I don't know how that's coming up, but if that's a real thing, hey man, we just gotta hope that sensory deprivation tank goes well for Aaron Rodgers. But no matter who's the quarterback, Greg, no matter who's the quarterback, let's get into some Jets talk here. I was actually just telling my brother, because he was laughing at me. He's like, don't you get tired of every single offseason just like wishing for a quarterback? He's like, the last 10 years, every single offseason, you're like, this is the year we're about to get X quarterback, and he's gonna change everything. Whether it was Zach Wilson, whether it was Sam Darnold, whether it was Brett Favre, well, no matter what.
It was Brock Purdy, Christian Hackenberg, the list goes on and on.
Bryce Petty, who was killing it. Every year, there's somebody who I'm like, yo, this guy, he can make some moves for us.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick, sure.
I mean, I went to Buffalo for Fitzmagic. That was the best season we had in a decade. I thought that was it. Fool's gold.
Mm-hmm.
We gave him a contract. I mean, it doesn't get any worse for us than when it comes to the Jets quarterback situation. But I was talking to my brother about it, and I was like, hey, man, the best part about this is the offseason, and it starts with the Senior Bowl. Now we have the East-West Shrine Bowl, which honestly, it's kind of new for me. So I've been all over that.
Yeah.
And then it's draft season where no matter who the quarterback is, it's time to improve this team. And we got Joe Douglas on the screen right now. We look the same. I know we look the same right now on the YouTube. Check us out there. Knicks, Jets, etc. Period. He's had great drafts. There's a lot bad to say about Joe Douglas. For me, it has mostly to do with signing veteran free agents. But when it comes to the draft, I have nothing bad to say. Even though there's bad picks, I still have nothing bad to say. I love his scouting. I love the offensive line help.
Did you see the story about Rex and LaFleur?
Go ahead.
Is that what you were going to?
Yeah, go ahead.
They were just pushing really hard for Zach Wilson. They were saying that. So Mike LaFleur and was it Rex? What's his last name? I can't remember. Is the assistant general manager? I just remember from all the One Jet Drive stuff. He's the guy that talks. Yeah, he's the guy that talks a lot. Does the interviews and stuff like that with the press with Joe Douglas, but assistant general manager. And they apparently fell in love with Zach Wilson and were trying to convince people in the organization that he's better than Trevor Lawrence. And people in the organization were like, "What are you talking about?"
Stop listening to Chris Sims, bro. They're like, dude, we need to cancel your Chris Sims subscription.
So take that. Yeah. So that was gonna be my question for you: is do you believe that story? Do you believe there was anyone delusional enough to think that Zach Wilson is better than Trevor Lawrence, the best prospect since Peyton Manning?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude.
Do you think they were in our building?
The delusion around NFL draft is mind-boggling. I mean, don't forget, at that time we had Jeremy Fowler of ESPN who did a whole hit piece about how Trevor Lawrence should go back to college, get his master's, so he could avoid the New York Jets dumpster fire organization. Meanwhile, he goes to Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. I mean, at the same time, you have this BYU pro day where Zach Wilson runs left, throws right. Everybody loses their absolute minds. Now it's who's going to trade up for Zach Wilson. Should the Jets maybe move out of that pick because other people want him so bad? Like I was here, Denver was huge. Oh, BYU kid, Denver's their squad. Russell Wilson wasn't there yet. Like, why don't they just trade up and get Zach? And we were like, no, we need Zach. We can't trade him. BYU is going crazy. I must have watched that Coastal Carolina game 87 times during that offseason. 100%, I think people were convinced that Zach Wilson was better than Trevor Lawrence. You know why? Because Trevor Lawrence got old. Not in the sense of age, but in the sense of to your senses. Every year he was there. He was on Clemson. You could throw up to Dabo Sweeney. You say, oh, he's just in the ACC. When he plays against real teams, he loses, even though he's never lost on a Saturday because the championship was on a Sunday.
Yeah, he's
they
only
were
lost
able,
championship games.
yeah. So it was like, oh, okay. He's obviously bad though because he does good when it's bad competition. When the good competition comes, he folds. Then we have Zach Wilson, who's running around, he's a pretty boy, who has the swagger. He's wearing the shorts. He has the arm strength. Like Zach Wilson's arm actually might be better than Trevor Lawrence. Like if you just like play a tape and like watch this guy run left, throw it, a bullet to the right, and then you watch Trevor Lawrence, I would probably say that Zach Wilson might be better. Like you could probably argue that little main point. But dude, what are you gonna do? Like if you're the Jets, man, like honest to God, what are you gonna do, Greg? Like you're sitting there, Trevor Lawrence is going number 1 because of that Rams game. You're number 2. You don't have a choice. You have to love Zach Wilson. You have to fall in love. You have to fall. Like what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between falling in love with a guy and trying to convince other people he's better than the best prospect in 10 years. You start losing especially if you're a general manager, if your job is to manage a team, including a scouting department, including, building an organization, building a team, you quickly start running into like, can you evaluate talent territory? Because Zach Wilson hasn't been very good, and Trevor Lawrence was in the playoffs this year. And Trevor Lawrence is a universally renowned for 3 seasons, the best prospect since Peyton Manning. So I just think you start losing credibility if you start getting on this hot take train. Like you're not Stephen A. Smith. You're not, these guys out here who are making a living on hot takes. You're supposed to be a general manager, assistant general manager. You're supposed to be an offensive coordinator. You're supposed to be able to evaluate talent at the NFL level and get it to where it needs to be. And if you're that delusional, it starts to get me a little nervous.
Speaking of, that means that LaFleur was right then, because LaFleur, halfway through the season, he was all over Mike White. He was like, I'm done with the Zach Wilson guy. Mike White's is better. Can we just play the better quarterback? And he even wanted Flacco at some point over Zach Wilson. So, and then we fired LaFleur. So maybe the delusion still stands in this building, to be honest with you. And speaking of Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers would be the best guy there to help him out. We're talking evaluation. We're talking Senior Bowl. What did you think of the Senior Bowl? Did anybody jump out to you besides like the main guys? I don't know if you want to get into them. Go ahead. Right off the bat, Greg, I think it's not gonna be the best draft class, and that's me putting it nicely. I think it's a pretty mediocre draft class, especially in the first round.
Yeah, I think what was special about last year, I feel like this year was a little less competitive, and I feel like last year, the draft class was just pretty deep. Like you had guys that were in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round make major impact. Was it Tyreek Woolen is a 5th round pick for Seattle, is up for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I've learned so much. I've learned so much from Tyreek Woolen and DK Metcalf. Shout out Seattle. I've learned so much from those guys.
Yeah, like when you get draft classes like that where you're talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks are up for Players of the Year or whatever it is. The Chiefs playing in the Super Bowl with a ton of rookies or a ton of young players. I don't necessarily know if I see that. Like starting to look at it, it looks like it gets pretty thin around the 3rd round. Where last year we were like, we'll take Muma in the 4th, no problem, or we'll take so and so in the 4th, no problem. And those guys are like starting in playoff games and stuff. So I don't know if that's gonna be the case. What kind of surprised me a little bit, I don't know how you felt about it. I think Max Duggan looked terrible.
Awful.
I don't know if he was out of place. I don't know what it was. To me, that was the biggest storyline of the Senior Bowl for sure.
You know what's interesting? He got one of the MVPs of the Senior Bowl for having like the best practice.
To me, that's crazy. I don't know if it was just.
I agree.
I don't know what it was. But dude, he had a sack. He gave up a sack as a quarterback because he just held the ball too long. Then he fumbled the ball because he stumbled out of his
Yeah, that was so
snap
bad.
and
That
then
fumble
ran
was
into the
bad.
running back, tripped over, ran into the running back, and fumbled the
Yeah,
ball. And then he
yeah.
had another bad play there too. So it was kind of surprising to see a guy that went to the national championship play in the Super Bowl, and then two look
Senior
so
Bowl.
bad compared to the other guys.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. But just on the quarterback note, Hendon Hooker kind
yeah,
of gave me some eyebrows.
yeah,
I'm kind of okay with taking Hooker in like the third, fourth round, even if we get an Aaron Rodgers. To be honest with you, like to just throw him as the third quarterback and just kind of phase Streveler out. You know what I mean? If it's Aaron Rodgers,
yeah,
Zach Wilson, and have Hendon Hooker there, I think there's some potential there. I think his injury really helps with his draft stock value. I mean, obviously not for him, it's lowered his draft stock, but I think for value, once he's in the third, fourth round, it's impossible, I feel like, to not draft Hendon Hooker.
yeah. I'm with you for sure. Um, Couple other guys I started looking at was really offensive linemen. I feel like that's where we're gonna have to go in the second, third round, fourth round, depending on what picks we're gonna have if we end up
It
trading for
just
Aaron
depends.
Rodgers.
It just depends. Yeah, it just depends on if we trade this
Yeah,
year's first or next year's first. It all depends.
a couple names that stood out to me, and God bless me for trying to pronounce these guys. Center for Michigan. First name
John
begins with
Michael
an
Schmidt.
O. His last
Oh
name.
no, no, oh not Michigan. Sorry, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, it's
No.
Minnesota. Minnesota.
Oluwatani.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oluwatani.
can't say it. I can't say it. Go
Yep.
ahead. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He's good.
So I think he had a great practice. So did the guy from Minnesota. Who
That's
was
John
that?
Michael Schmitz.
John Michael Schmitz. That's the other guy too. Both those centers I thought looked pretty good all camp long. I was watching some of the O line versus D line for practice, like highlights on YouTube and stuff. I think both of those guys look pretty good. The one lineman we talked about in the last episode had the super long arms. He practiced the first day and then didn't practice the second day when we recorded. I don't think he practiced the rest of the week. I don't think he played in the game.
Dude, I think he was so
So
good. I think we're talking about Jones here. I think he was so
yeah,
good
the guy from Ohio
that his
State, right? He's a
agent,
right tackle from
yeah,
Ohio
Broderick
State.
Jones,
Yep.
Broderick Jones. I think they literally told him, dude, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, don't even risk it. Like, you killed it the first day. You proved your point. You're from Ohio State. You shouldn't even be. You're an Ohio State offensive lineman. You really shouldn't even be at the Senior Bowl, regardless. You showed out day one. You killed everybody in practice. That's it. Just go home.
Yep.
I legit think that's what happened. I would love him
Um,
as a right tackle. I love John Michael
weird.
Schmitz. I'm okay with the center from Michigan.
Another right
But
tackle for you, John, that I think is going to be projected top second roundish, where we're going to be picking, middle second round, maybe where we're picking, is Darnell Wright from Tennessee.
yes, he
So
had a great
again,
Senior Bowl. He has
right
small hands
tackle.
though, Greg.
He's a little bit smaller, 340 pounds. I think a little short on the arms, a little small. But dude, he just punches. Like he'll just hit you. He'll knock you down.
Yeah.
He played in a big time program in Tennessee. They had an incredible season this year. He blocked for Hendon Hooker. There's a lot of expectation. He played in a lot of big games. So he played
Facts.
up to that moment. Craziest thing about him, John, he's only played 15 games, including this past season at the
That's
collegiate
scary.
level. Super
That's
raw.
scary.
Super raw, but he played well to the point where he has a late first, second round grade on him.
Those
Maybe
guys
he's not
never
a
go in the
day
first,
one
second
starter.
though. Yeah,
Yeah,
those guys
maybe
always
he's
go in
not,
like a third, fourth round.
and maybe that's the case. Maybe he ends up dropping to the third or fourth round, and that's our Max Mitchell. That is a little bit more of a developmental guy. Has a year or two to build because, God willing, we have a fully staffed offensive line going into the season. But I liked what I saw from him. Like I said, he played pretty good. There was he had a block in the game on a wide 9, which I know that
That
because
was
of the
sick.
Jets.
That
Yeah,
was
just
sick.
wrap the guy around the quarterback. Just played really good technique. So again,
I'm with you there.
not the biggest and not the strongest guy like the guy from Ohio State that we talked about, but just pretty good tape from what I saw this week. Is someone that stood out to me. Where he should be falling, according to projections right now, is right about where we're picking for a position in need. So I was happy to see that.
That's fair
What about
enough.
you?
The
Anyone that
last
stood
guy
out for you?
I'm gonna throw in one more offensive lineman. We mentioned him last time, but it's really on the negative side here, and that's Blake Freeland, the tackle
Mm,
from BYU, who was a 5-year tackle. He was a beast in BYU. We were looking forward to him coming out. He looked really bad when he tried to play as right tackle in any practice drills, and he didn't have the best left tackle situation. I don't think he's going to come here, but again, late in the late rounds, I'm taking Blake Freeland. He's a monster of a human. You know what I mean? He's built like Becton. So you put him
Yeah.
there, you have him behind him, and you kind of figure it out. That's how I would play it. But he kind of disappointed me. I'm in love with John Michael Schmitz, and not because of John Michael Schmitz. I'll be honest, but because of how annoyed I am that everybody told me that Creed Humphrey's not good and we shouldn't draft
Yeah.
him, and I'm silly, and he turned out to be a beast, and we shouldn't draft Tyler Linderbaum because it's silly and I don't know what I'm talking about, and he's a center and he's a beast. Like that stuff gets to me. That's what like DK Metcalf and Tariq Woolen. Everybody told me they're too big, they're too strong, they're too fast. Like I still don't know why I listened to any of them, and they're beasts. So I'm kind of actually flipping towards the wide receivers here. I love the wide receivers in this draft. The cornerbacks are very good, which sucks for us because we have Sauce and we have DJ Reed. So and we have Michael Carter, honestly. So it's not great that the cornerbacks are so good. But there's some very special wide receivers out here in the Senior Bowl, Greg, that really caught my eye. Of course,
Okay.
there's the absolute track star from Princeton, Andre Yeshivas, who killed it, and everyone's starting to get on track here. Captain of the track team, breaking heptathlon records. I mean, what do you want from the guy? He's a beast. He has a frame, but he played in Ivy League. He played in Princeton, kid from Hawaii. So you have question marks there. I think he's going to be fantastic in the NFL. I really love this kid. I love Jaden Reed. Killed that wide receiver. Rashee Rice from SMU, amazing. The kid from Stanford, the wide receiver from Stanford, he didn't have a great. His name is Mike Wilson, is it? He didn't have a great Senior Bowl, but he looked really good in the practice cuts. We have the kid from BYU, Nagua, who kind of stocked down a little bit, which I'm okay with. I think once you're from BYU, man, you got to get stocked down. I mean, I remember us talking about Dax Milne and how we should bring him to the Jets as an undrafted free agent because he was good with Zach Wilson and BYU. I mean, sometimes the competition really does matter.
Yeah.
Stock up, Hutchinson, the guy from Iowa State. He didn't have a great game, but dude, I really like him. He gets some separation. I love these wide receivers. I really want one of them.
Dude, one name you have
Reed is really good. Reed is really good, but Yeshivas is so damn good, man.
one name you haven't mentioned, and I'm not sure why, is a name that I've been screaming about for 2 years now on Michigan, and that's Ronnie Bell. I feel like Ronnie Bell is not your typical size, speed kind of guy, but he just makes plays for Michigan. Michigan that has absolutely no weapons at the wide receiver position, but this one guy. He's not super big. He's not super fast. He can just play wide receiver, I think, better than most. He can get separation through route running and technique. He can make plays on a ball that's really not ever in the perfect spot because the quarterback's never great at Michigan over the last 3-4 years.
Yep.
I just think he's been very good for 2 or 3 years. 6 foot, 190, but again, not blazing speed. He's not like a speedster that's going to run down the field and kill you. Last year, 900 yards, 4 touchdowns. Again, nothing absolutely crazy. But if you're looking for a guy in a big game, you need a big play. He's been pretty good for Michigan over the last couple of years. So that's someone that stood out to me wide receiver wise. Defensive wise, one name that kind of stood out to me because, again, I was watching a lot of the offensive line defensive reps. I think I might have just moved on from his name. I got to find it again real quick. But it was the guy from
Don't tell me Bowling Green.
No, Will McDonald IV from Iowa State.
Oh yeah,
he was
like
good. He's like a smaller outside linebacker or the outside defensive end linebacker. I think he's 6'3", 240. So he's not really big enough to be like an every down linebacker or defensive end, but he's a little bit too big for a linebacker position. He started doing some drills, and I was looking at him. He was very fast twitch, good off the ball. Good speed, was able to beat people inside and outside with raw speed and a good move, inside with a spin move or some good technique. looked at his stats, and his stats were down this year. He didn't have the best senior year.
Yes.
11 and a half sacks 2 years ago, 10 and a half sacks 2 years ago, 11 and a half sacks last year, 5 sacks this previous season. So, tackle numbers are still there, assist numbers are still there. A couple extra pass deflects and breakups. So I don't know if he was playing more cover this year at Iowa State, but those are one of those guys that if he's available late in the round and we kind of need a little bit of a speedster guy that's going to play special teams and then come in, kind of like Michael Clemens almost did this year. If we need another type of position, he's one that stood out to me when I was watching those offensive defensive matchup highlights.
All
Don't
right,
know if it's
fair
a
enough.
position of need for us, which is incredible.
I know, and that's why I didn't even mention Tyjae Spears from
Yeah.
Tulane, the running back, because I know we're going to add another running back here. I'm hoping it's Jamal Williams as a veteran to hang out with Breece Hall. But dude, Tyjae Spears is a beast from Tulane. I'm gonna tell you right now, Greg, I love every single Tulane player that's coming out. I hope the
Yeah.
defensive guys fall to us late. The linebackers and the two safeties. I love them. They're so good. So Tyjae Spears is a guy from the Senior Bowl that really caught my eye. And there's a bunch of good cornerbacks too. But I'm worried because this is not a position of need for us. What upsets me is there's not that many good safeties. It is a position of need for us.
What was the one guy I had here? The guy
In Illinois.
from Illinois.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's good.
Sidney
He's
Brown.
good. Yeah.
I think Kirby Joseph
he
is
played
better.
corner a little bit too. What's up?
I think Kirby Joseph is better, the guy that went from Illinois last year.
Last year's safety class was so good, man. Remember Petrie when we were talking about him? He's doing so well
from
in Houston.
Baylor. Yeah, there's a bunch of good safeties, a bunch of good defensive backs. Did you see, real quick before we get out of here, did you see ESPN? I don't know who at ESPN wrote it, but they redrafted last year's draft. Sauce Gardner went 1 overall. That's how dominant he is. Love to see that.
I've never been so happy to be so wrong about something in my whole life than drafting Sauce Gardner. And I owned up to it. You know, he's been so good. He's been so dominant. And I was gonna talk about the running back Mo Ibrahim in the East West Shrine Bowl to get him as an undrafted free agent, line him up with JMS. But you mentioned Sauce Gardner. I have to get off on Sauce Gardner talking about how he knows a little something something. He's talking to Kyle Brandt on NFL Network, talking about Aaron Rodgers. He says he knows a little something something, but he won't get too much into it. We know he talks a lot.
Something about something.
That kind of excited me. And then Garrett Wilson, almost on every show on Radio Row today, being very candid about a man who's under contract with Green Bay. I mean, I wonder if he's going to get fined for that. No joke. I actually do wonder.
Could be.
Aaron Rodgers said a funny comment. And of course, we start with Aaron and we end with Aaron during the Jets offseason podcast. It might be our last one, or it might be this is going to be the rest of the year. Starting and ending every episode with Aaron Rodgers. But he made a funny comment. He said, contrary to popular belief, I'm actually under contract with Green Bay. I'm not a free agent, which is hilarious. Everybody's talking about him like it's inevitable that he's coming to. Dude, Bill Simmons, who hates the New York Jets, and Peter Schrager, who's so involved with the New York Jets, is telling us that Aaron Rodgers is coming. I mean, what else? Honestly, if they came up to you right now, Greg, and said that to you, what else would you possibly need? Literally, what other evidence would you need that he's coming? But it was just so cynical. I'm so scared that he's going on this retreat. Nothing good could ever happen to the Jets. But I need this to happen for us because thanks for listening to this full episode. The reason why we're so casual right now on the Senior Bowl stuff, we don't want to get too deep into the draft yet because we don't know where we're drafting. Like how much can I talk about Paris Johnson or the tackle from Northeastern if we don't even know if we're drafting?
Yep. Yeah, so and I think that's a good point to remind the audience that, we're going to be diving into this stuff week in, week out, but we're going to be doing some cursory stuff. I think next week, maybe we try to do a little bit more on I liked when you were showing in the group chats, who we're cutting, who we're keeping, where we're at salary cap wise. If you have time to do that next week, I'm down to do that for sure.
I got some breaking news on the Knicks.
Some Knicks news? I saw some NBA news. I didn't see any Knicks news.
Pardon
Yep.
my take. Breaking
What do you
news.
got for the Knicks? What's moving on?
Josh Hart has
Okay.
left the court, and then Woj just tweeted the Trailblazers are trading Josh Hart to the Knicks.
Okay.
I love that. Doesn't say
Don't know
what it
for
is.
next. Yep.
Don't know. Don't know. It's literally breaking right now as we speak. So we don't know the compensation, but that's a Woj bomb, baby. Give me Josh Hart. We have a wing. Who are we gonna send? Do you think it's Cam Reddish?
I think so. I think that's who we've been trying to trade all season. So
But Josh Hart has a real contract. Think we got rid of
yeah,
Fournier?
maybe it's your boy Fournier. Yeah.
Josh Hart is making 12.9. We can't just give him Cam Reddish.
Cam Reddish. Yeah.
Doesn't work. Oh my! I know this is the end of the Jets episode here, but things are
It's
happening.
breaking news though. Yeah, it's Knicks, Jets, etc. Let's end this episode. Let's wrap this up. Tell everyone to like and subscribe where they can find
Go
us.
ahead. Yeah.
We got it. We got to get on to a Knicks episode now. We got breaking news.
Yeah, subscribe to our YouTube. We have some visuals going on. We're doing some new things. Bear with us for the next month. We are doing some real big things here with the Knicks side, with the Jets side. Have some patience with us. We know it's in the middle of the Knicks season, not ideal. We get that, but
Yep.
we're rolling through here. Hopefully, right after the All-Star break, we'll be rocking and rolling. Jet stuff, we're getting into it right now. I'm gonna start writing again for the Jet Press hardcore. We're getting into it, man. If Aaron Rodgers comes, it's all over. If Aaron Rodgers comes to the New York Jets, it's all over.
Yeah.
But let's just start here. Let's just calm down. We got a week left to figure that out. We got the Knicks trade deadline. Hit us up there. Knicks comma, Jets comma, etc. period on our YouTube. We have the Knicks episodes where we recap games, where we talk about games after they happen, where we talk a trade deadline, we're talking all-star games. Shout out to Jericho Sims. We got winning picks weekly, where we got the Super Bowl odds coming out. Nice
Final
coming out
final
there.
episode of the football season this week.
So sad. But we'll do draft odds soon. And you know what it is, Jets episodes. We'll be getting to the draft soon. If Aaron Rodgers, I might just go live 24 hours if we get Aaron Rodgers. I might just sit here just live.
Let's turn this into a vlog channel.
Yeah, we might start going live for post game Knicks stuff. We'll talk about it all. Let us know what you think. JETS, Jets, man. This Knicks stuff got me hyped. Let's go. Josh Hart, baby. Let's go. Knicks tape. I'm hyped. Anything else, Greg?
No, let's go Jets.
Let's go.